He says he's got a concern for flora and fauna. That's not the kind of concern that generates legal standing. It's not the kind of concern that involves an injury to him arising out of this permit, and it's simply not enough as a matter of law. Have an actual interest and an actual injury to appeal a permit decision by the secretary. By no standard does Mr. Nichols meet the requirements for standing under the recognized principles of the cases I cited to you. There's ample more cases in Delaware law that deal with the issue of standing, and I respectfully submit that the board should grant this motion and not hear further evidence on the appeal.
This is an opening question before you make your remarks. Do you intend to make statements regarding personal injury or damage to yourself? And if so, we would like the reporter to swear you in before you testify.
Depends on what you mean by personal injury.
If you're going to make any statements that are related to the factual issue of whether you have been aggrieved by the decision here.
Depends on what the meaning of the word aggrieved is.
Yeah, well, I think that it might make sense to have you sworn in.
Pardon?
It might make sense to have you sworn in the event that you do make comments.
During my remarks?
I think that the question of standing is a mixed question of fact and law. You're right to say, well, it depends on what aggrieved means. And there is a legal definition. Mr. Schell has made argument as to what aggrieved means legally. His argument is that you have to establish that you're aggrieved, you have to establish that you've been injured in some concrete and particular way. That's where you get into the factual issues. And I think it might make sense for the court reporter to put you under oath, just to be on the safe side.
Well, various definitions can be used to define the word aggrieved. In common parlance, it means to have a grievance. A grievance is based on the subject's perception or state of mind. That's why I have a difficult time responding to your question. You're asking me to respond to my state of mind, if that's what you'd like to do.
No, I'm not asking you anything. I was trying to clear you as to whether you want to present to the board evidence that relates to how you have been aggrieved.
I want to respond to the issues that I raised in my memorandum of appeal.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that? If it looks like you are in fact starting to put evidence into the record as to how you've been aggrieved, then maybe we'll deal with the issue whether you should be under oath at that point.
No, the only information I'm going to cover is that which I've already provided as part of the public record in my memorandum of appeal.
That's fine, thank you.
Excuse me, before we begin, I'd like to, pardon the interruption, I'd like the record to reflect that DENREC also joins in Mr. Schell's argument.
Yes, you mentioned that DENREC had joined in the motion.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear for the record because you asked Mr. Schell to, I guess, repeat the motion.
I'm sorry.
Since it was made before the hearing began, I guess, I thought to be careful I should state it again. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nichols, please proceed.
Thank you. Basically, standing to appeal is based on the statute, in which, in our interpretation, it is generally an inclusive statute. The Coastal Zone Act provision says any person aggrieved can appeal. From the Delaware Natural Heritage in the Endangered Species Program that was missing from the record, that, again, how do I feel about that? Well, it was missing. Let's leave it at that, there were various groups that might have been interested in the findings of that report as it pertains to siting the solid oxide fuel cells in the area in which they're proposed to be sited. Who makes claim for the benefits of flora and fauna? The flora and fauna? They can't argue on behalf of themselves. Who else if not me? So to claim that I have no grievance says that I can't possibly have an interest in the environmental hazards associated with siting the fuel cells within the coastal zone. And lastly, and I think this is the most important consideration, there are technical errors and flaws and mistakes in the application that DENREC apparently overlooked. We'll provide expert witness testimony that points to those flaws, and it seems that you as commissioners would benefit from hearing exactly what those technical errors were.